Picture this. The highest court in the land. The air is absolutely thick with tension. On one side, you have a multi-billion-dollar industry, one that's built entirely on speed and convenience. And on the other, the millions of people who actually make that industry run. This isn't just some legal disagreement. It's about the very definition of work in the 21st century.
And this quote? This is the legal bombshell that brought it all to a head. A petition filed by the Indian Federation of App-Based Transport Workers, or IFIT, didn't just, ask for a few changes. No, it accused the entire system of violating the Constitution itself. They framed it as a matter of fundamental human rights.
So, the date is September 2021. This public interest litigation puts the whole business model of giants like Uber, Ola, Zomato, and Swiggy squarely in the legal crosshairs. And this, right here, is where our case file officially begins.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this incredibly complex case, we've broken down our investigation into 6 key sections. We're going to start by examining the machine itself, then look at the collision course it's on, the choices these companies are facing, the potential ripple effects of those choices, and finally, we'll wrap up with our key takeaways in the final briefing.
So let's start by popping the hood on the engine of this entire economy. I mean, what are we really talking about when we say gig worker? And just how big are the economic stakes here? Because, spoiler alert, they are massive.
Now, this official definition from the Code on Social Security 2020 might seem a little dry, but trust me, it's absolutely crucial. The key phrase is right there, outside of the traditional employer-employee relationship. This single line is the legal bedrock the entire gig economy is built on, and it's the very point being challenged in court.
And the stakes? Well, they couldn't be higher. A Boston Consulting Group survey estimates that the gig economy could add up to 1.25% to India's entire GDP. We're not talking about small change here. We're talking about a massive economic force, which really explains why this legal battle is being fought so fiercely.
And this isn't just about abstract economics, it's about people. A Niti Aayog report projects that this workforce is going to explode to 23.5 million people by 2029-30. That's millions and millions of livelihoods that depend on a legal status that is now under the most intense scrutiny imaginable.
So, here's where the rubber really meets the road. Companies classify their workers as partners or independent contractors. That one simple classification means they don't have to provide legally mandated Social Security, no fixed wages, and none of the protections that a traditional workman gets. It's not a bug, it is the core feature of their business model.
But while this model was scaling up at lightning speed, a crisis was brewing out on the streets. The partners who power these apps, the drivers and delivery workers, they started to push back. They started arguing that the reality of their work was a far, far cry from some flexible, easygoing partnership.
And this brings us to the fundamental conflict, right? On one side, you have workers demanding the basics, Social Security, fair pay, and just some transparency into how they're managed. On the other, the companies are holding firm. These are self-employed contractors, not employees. And that flexibility, they argue, is the real benefit. The problem is, these two positions are basically mutually exclusive.
I mean, a survey by IFAT just laid bare the stark reality behind the app's friendly interface. Workers reported these grueling days, sometimes up to 20 hours, with less than 6 hours of sleep. They talked about their incomes falling because of algorithms they couldn't possibly understand and a severe lack of basic safety nets like health or accident insurance. This wasn't a partnership. For many, it was a breaking point.
This quote from union leader Shaikh Saladdin, man, it captures a desperation perfectly. The nationwide strikes weren't just about pay. They were a collective cry for justice, for dignity, and for basic social protection from a system that many workers felt was just exploiting them.
So you've got strikes, you've got lawsuits, you've got this rising tide of public pressure. If you're one of these multi-billion-dollar platforms, you're now at a strategic crossroads. And from where I'm sitting, they essentially have 3 choices for how to move forward.
So what can they actually do? Well, path 1 is to fight. They can keep challenging this in court, keep lobbying, and just double down on the idea that their workers are independent contractors. Path 2 is to comply. They can adapt to this new wave of state-level regulations that are popping up. Or path 3, they can try to innovate, maybe create some new hybrid model that we haven't seen before.
And that comply path? It's not hypothetical anymore. It's actually happening. Rajasthan passed an act in 2023, and a similar bill has been proposed in Karnataka. Both of them create these welfare boards and mandate a small fee, a percentage of each transaction, that gets paid into a Social Security fund for the workers. So yeah, regulation is no longer some distant threat, it is a present-day reality.
So whether they decide to fight, comply, or innovate,
One thing is absolutely certain: change is coming. But what are the ripple effects going to be? What does this all mean for the cost of your next food delivery, or the speed of your next taxi, and maybe even the future of the entire quick commerce industry?
Right. This is the critical question. If that foundational partner model gets dismantled, either by the courts or by new laws, what does the fallout actually look like? For the platforms, for the workers, and let's be honest, for us, the consumers who use these services every day.
You can see the trade-offs are incredibly complex. Forcing platforms to provide social security will, without a doubt, increase their operational costs. Now, this leads to greater stability and protection for workers, which is the whole point. But could it also slow down the hyper-growth of the industry? Could it potentially impact the convenience and the low prices that we've all come to expect? It's a real possibility.
Okay, we've reviewed the evidence, we've analyzed the arguments on both sides, and we've explored the potential futures. It's time to close this case file and summarize the essential findings from our investigation.
So if you remember nothing else from our briefing today, remember these 3 crucial takeaways. First, that partner label, the very bedrock of this entire industry, is legally fragile and it is under direct, serious challenge. Second, with states like Rajasthan and Karnataka already passing laws, regulation is pretty much inevitable. The debate has shifted from if it will happen to how and when. And third, because of all these pressures, the current business model is just not sustainable. It has to evolve to survive.
Which brings us to our final question for you. The gig economy is at a massive turning point. So, will its future be shaped in a courtroom, in a legislative assembly, or in a company boardroom? Will the solution come from more legal fights, more new laws, or from some kind of genuine innovation we haven't even thought of yet? The trial is underway, and believe me, the verdict will redefine work for millions.